Good morning and welcome to CNN News 18 with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Our top story, the Karnataka High Court will pronounce its verdict in the controversial hijab ban row. Ahead of the verdict, schools and colleges will remain shut in Udupi and Shivamogga, while prohibitory orders have been issued in several districts of the state. The hijab row erupted after a petition filed by a group of students from Udupi challenging the ban on headscarves in educational institutions across the state, which led to major protests. The petitioners have contended that wearing a hijab is protected under the religious freedoms granted by the Constitution and that colleges have no authority to ban it. On the other hand, the state government has argued that hijabs are not an integral part of Islam and students must adhere to the Uniform Code. The hearing will begin at 10:30 a.m. I'm joined by Harish Upadhyay reporting live from Bengaluru. So Harish, what is the latest from Ground Zero? The entire state is on edge ahead of this verdict. Decode the security arrangements that have been made on the ground.
Well, prohibitory orders banning any sort of a gathering, celebration and protest has been put in place in most of the districts in Karnataka. Some of the sensitive districts like Shivamogga or Udupi have also suspended classes for the day. They are saying that we do not want to take any chances. Last time around we had seen some violent protests, especially in PU and degree colleges. So that's the reason classes have been suspended. At the same time, in Bengaluru, which did not see much of a violent protest, we've had police deployed across the city. Nearly 10,000 policemen deployed across Bengaluru today. Additional forces have been drawn from the Karnataka State Reserve Police as well as the City Armed Reserve. And around the 200-meter radius of schools and colleges in many districts, the district administration has ensured that there's no crowd that gathers. So clearly, the state government wants to ensure that irrespective of the kind of verdict that comes in, law and order doesn't become an issue in the state.
Right. Let's go to our guest to get a view on the entire legal tussle that we're set to see in the Karnataka High Court. I'm joined by Ashwini Dubey, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, and social activist Amber Zaidi. Ashwini Dubey, I'll come to you first when it comes to this entire hijab row. Now, this is a tussle between two things, the right to expression and uniformity. Now, legally, where do you sense does the needle lie?
See, the core, as you rightly said, the core of dispute is the clash between the state mandated restriction on religious attire in educational institution on the ground of maintaining public order and uniformity and the constitutional rights of individual to freely exercise their religious belief and free speech and expression. Now, the basic issue, the debate involves intricate question how the Constitution of India protects the religious freedom and the state's right to impose restrictions on the exercise of the right. Article 19(1)(a) lays down that all citizens shall have right to freedom of speech expression. And according to Justice Krishna Iyer, this freedom is essential because the censorial power lies in the people over and against the government and not in the government over and against the people. But right under Article 19(1)(a), like every other right under the Constitution, is not absolute. Article 19(2) lays down the state shall be entitled to impose reasonable restrictions on exercise of rights under Article 19(25) by way of framing laws. And similarly, all fundamental rights are there well in place, but all fundamental rights are subject to the restriction. And here, what is the restriction? Restriction is that Karnataka government maintains that hijab is not an essential religious practice in Islam, and that even otherwise, the state is constitutionally empowered to issue prohibitory orders to impose reasonable restrictions to the exercise of fundamental rights. There are certain judgments also. Even the judgment which is widely being cited, the Fatima judgment which was passed by the Kerala High Court, even that judgment did not quash the CBSE notification. This is also one of the issues. And time and again in Shirur Math case also, Honorable Supreme Court has also said that the state has right to regulate the religious practices. So the basic issue is one has a right to propagate the constitutional guarantee and constitutional rights provided under Article 25 of the Constitution of India, but subject to the reasonable restrictions. And those fundamental rights means the right to propagate any religion at a religious place, not a secular place. And what I understand as a student of law, that a school is a secular place and a state can make a law. And when there is a law, that has to be followed. Over to you.
Right. Amber Zaidi, before I come to you, we're getting a piece of breaking news. Now, ahead of the verdict, the state government has imposed Section 144 in several districts, including Udupi. Schools and colleges remain shut today. That's the piece of breaking news that's coming in. Harish, so the state government imposing a perpetual lockdown, if you will, in multiple districts to prevent any kind of law and order situation. So the entire state remaining on edge as the Karnataka High Court is set to deliver that critical verdict.
Absolutely. The government, through Section 144, clearly bans any sort of a gathering or a protest or, in fact, any celebration as well. That's the reason why they have brought in this particular order. And this is in several districts. Some of the sensitive districts, like as you mentioned, Udupi, have also decided to suspend the classes for degree and PU colleges. Same with Dakshina Kannada, the neighboring district of Dakshina Kannada as well. These two districts had, in fact, seen the first set of protests in the first weeks of January, and later on, only in Feb is when Shivamogga and other districts actually saw violent protests. So most of these districts, after a high-level meeting with the Chief Secretary, the DGP yesterday, have decided to ensure that, one, they have prohibitory orders in most of the districts, and the sensitive ones have stepped up security and also suspended classes.
Right. Thank you, Harish, for getting us the update when it comes to the security infrastructure in the state ahead of that critical verdict. So the state government not taking any chances when it comes to law and order. Amber Zaidi, on the wider point, I want to get your perspective. Where do you stand on this now? As your fellow panelist, as Ashwini Dubey has pointing out, that the state has the right to impose reasonable restrictions. Is barring headscarves in educational institutions a reasonable restriction on the freedom of expression?
Yeah, absolutely. Because earlier we have seen the court's verdict also that also in this case, the Karnataka government has also told to the court that there is no restriction on wearing hijab in public places or in other places or institutions. You say, like, we have religious institutions also, and they can wear their dress code, they can follow the uniformity in their institutions. But when we talk about the exceptional or reasonable restriction subject to institutional discipline, that is what Ashwini Dubey has also said, that we need to maintain that the secular institution where I think it's justified, and we also have the right to choose freedom and expression, but that doesn't come under religious freedom, because it is clear now that everybody knows that earlier people used to believe that burqa or hijab was part of religious practice, or it is essential to Islam, which is not. Now everybody knows, and it has been clearly mentioned in Quran that there is no such dress code in Islam that you need to follow, but it's your choice to follow the kind of dress code you want to follow, but it should be moderate. And when you come in India, like, we all follow our own choice of dress codes, and when like, we have religious institution, and then on the other hand we have secular institutions. So every institution has their own right to implement their own dress code, and secular institutions has also right to implement their own dress code, and which is justified now.
Right. Ashwini Dubey, I want to get your perspective on another aspect of this entire debate. But before I come to you, we're getting some more breaking news. We're getting